with comedy, and it just totally works, and you don't really question it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree, and it's just with the little details, like the production design and the cinematography in the film, along with those amazing performances. No matter how big, obviously, Gene Hackman is the main character in the film. But no matter if it's him or even like Bill Murray, who isn't in the film a whole lot, but has these great moments in it, and there's a reason why Bill Murray has always gone back to Wes Anderson. They've worked together now on, what is it, eight different movies, 7 movies?
Almost, yeah. Well, wasn't this the...
This was the second movie that they did.
Because he's in Rushmore, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's been in everything since Rushmore. Even if it's something like the Darjeeling Limited, where it's just a cameo. Even the Grand Budapest Hotel, it's more of just a cameo. But you have just the performances that you're getting out of every single person on screen, no matter how big their role in the film actually is. They're all fantastic in the movie.
Even Owen Wilson, he's such a weird character through all it, which we'll talk about more when we go through the film. But wow.
Yeah, his scenes are some of the ones that I continue to quote just because his whole character is really funny. He's the ultimate kind of hanger-on.
Yeah, just the neighbor kid, the lingerer.
Yeah.
Around.
But it's just, everyone in the movie is great, and you're right, it's kind of like, because Rushmore, it's really only maybe 4 characters, main characters I'm talking about in the entire movie, and this was definitely more of an ensemble, and everyone kind of has their moments in the film. It's kind of like that. I don't want to say Life Aquatic is so much of an ensemble, but I think very much so Fantastic Mr. Fox is.
Yeah.
As, even though it's stop motion animated.
The voice acting they're all somebody's.
Yeah. Moonrise Kingdom, even though the 2 main characters are obviously the children, but is very much an ensemble film. And even I would argue that Grand Budapest, beyond the Ralph Fiennes character, it was kind of like Gene Hackman and Royal Tenenbaum. He's obviously the main character, but there's so many other great performances from that cast. And you'll notice, kind of after this one, and especially if you've seen any of the trailers for his upcoming French Dispatch, which should be out, I believe, in October, you'll see how many people are listed in that cast. That's very much going to be an ensemble film. But this kind of was that first movie that he made with a large cast. And, as he's made movies since, they've all had large casts. With, the exception of, I would say, Darjeeling Limited, which is really only 3 people. Maybe 4.
So we've established that Gene Hackman is still around, but he's since retired. He should have retired with Royal Tenenbaums, I'll just say that. But how old is Gene now, right now?
According to IMDb, he was born in 1930, so he's 91 years old.
Wow. Which
blows my mind. I mean, I know he's been around for a long time, but holy shit, he's really 91?
Because
this was brought up before, when a few years ago after Ricky Jay had died, and I wanted to recommend Heist, the great David Mamet movie with Gene Hackman and
Danny
Delroy Lindo and Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And that movie came out, I believe, November-ish, because I remember watching it around Thanksgiving. And then the Royal Tenenbaums came out in December, the end of the year push. So we had these two amazing performances in the same year. And honestly, if he had gone out, after the Royal Tenenbaums, wow, those two performances to end on would have been fantastic. That would have, cemented that legacy. Excuse me. But then he sticks around, unfortunately, and he does a few shitty movies afterwards. And I think, what was his last movie? Was the Welcome to Mooseport movie?
I believe with, was it Ray Romano?
Ray Romano? Yeah, wow, man, that was his last movie? Oh, what a bummer to hear. He could have gone out with these two performances at the end of 2001. And instead he sticks around. I think he makes Mooseport, which is the last one. I think before that, I think he's in Runaway Jury.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the year before Mooseport. And I'm not sure exactly what else he had just prior to that. Oh, Behind Enemy Lines, which I thought came out before Tenenbaums.
With also with Owen Wilson, right?
Also with Owen Wilson, yeah. That says, according to IMDb, that's post Tenenbaums. But I could have sworn that was before. Yeah, it says it came out 30th November 2001. So he had those three movies within about a month of each other. So he does a couple of not great movies, and then retires on Mooseport, which was a mistake in my opinion.
Yeah, I would love to pick his brain, as to why, 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 because he seemed very kind of selective. It seemed odd for him to be willing to go out on a movie like that. Did he owe someone a favor or something?
Well, let's talk about Hackman, and in particular his role in this film, because, and this is no secret, he and Wes Anderson had a very contentious relationship making this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Anderson wanted to write this movie for him, and in order to, write a movie for someone, you have to kind of make sure that they would want to do it. So I think he approaches Hackman, or at least Hackman's agent, and says, "Hey, I want to write this movie for Gene Hackman. I want to know if he's interested in it." And the agent kind of says, "We're not, or he's not sure he wants to do it. Show him a script and then he'll decide." But Anderson obviously wants to write this movie for him, with him in mind as playing Royal. So there has to be some kind of a talk before this, and he finally gets a chance to meet with Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman kind of says, "I don't like when people write for me because I don't want them to think that they know me without actually knowing me." And Wes Anderson said, I'm not trying to write for you like I know you. I would like you to play this part that I'm writing in the hopes that you will play it."
So he took it in the wrong way.
Yeah, kind of. He thought that Wes Anderson was going to meet him and then say, "Oh, I'm going to write this role specifically for you," when instead it was more like Wes Anderson had Gene Hackman in mind when he was writing this movie, or when he wanted to write this movie.
Him as an actor,
Yeah.
Because if you study someone's work, you can write for them, their mannerisms, things that would, fall off of their tongue naturally, that sort of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, so he meets with Hackman. I think, kind of strike some kind of deal, and he's able to go and write this film. Now, I still think Hackman was on the fence about it. from what I've read in the lengthy interviews I was reading with Wes Anderson earlier today, doing in my research. It sounded like Hackman was still kind of on the fence. It sounded like he, at this point in time in 2001, he's in his 70s. He's 71 at this point.
Wow.
If my math is correct. And he's eyeballing retirement at this time already. So it sounds like he wants to do something fun, something that doesn't require a lot of work. And from all accounts, he just didn't have a good time on this film. I don't know if it was a little too emotional for him, or he just didn't get along with Wes Anderson and the way that Anderson works. But they had a strained relationship during this. And possibly that's why after this movie, instead of retiring at the end of this, he makes a couple other movies where he can probably have more fun. Maybe that's why he did Mooseport. You know, go out on a dumb comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to do a whole lot of heavy lifting in it. But does this film, I think they finally struck an agreement that sounded like possibly there was, because this was a low-budget film.
It's 20 million budget?
Yeah,
right?
So not as low-budget as I thought, but still a lower budget.
A big budget for Wes at the time,
Yes.
you know, but still like a lower tier, like an indie film. Still, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounded like, you know, a lot of the money that was in the budget went to, you know, I don't want to say the set because it wasn't a set, it was an actual house. And we can talk about that in a moment. But into the house and into the production design, and it's a large ensemble cast, so, you know, everyone has to get, you know, their money. So it sounded like there wasn't, you know, like, here's a $20 million check, will you do this movie? It sounds like, you know, here's maybe $1 million, maybe 250,000 or something. Will you please do this movie? Because it's a good role for you, and it's, you know, you love acting. So everyone has to work for scale. So it sounds like maybe it was a money issue that Hackman probably wanted some more money to do it. You know, he wanted to have some fun, and he just didn't. And he just had a I don't want to say awful relationship, but didn't really get along with Wes Anderson. To the point that he was almost bullying Wes Anderson, to the point where, like, the rest of the main cast, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow and Angelica Houston and Bill Murray especially, kind of, you know, stood up for Wes and kind of called Gene Hackman out for acting like an asshole. I know that Bill Murray would even show up, like, on his days off just to kind of hang out and be around and be supportive of him, of Wes Anderson. So it's a great role for him, for Hackman, and he's really fucking good in the movie. But it just sounds like it wasn't a fun time with him.
Hackman won a Golden Globe, right, for his performance?
He did, he did, and I remember him being in the conversation for, like, a Best Actor Academy Award nomination that unfortunately never materialized. But I think he's fantastic in the movie, you know. It's unfortunate to hear that he didn't get along with Wes Anderson. He was being like a real prick on set. But, you know, he's great in the movie.
Because I think that the whole premise stems from Royal, you know, and his relationship, his strained relationship with his whole family. Like, without him, there is no movie. You know what I mean? He is
exactly.
He
and
is
maybe that's a bit of method acting on Hackman's part. That Royal's the asshole in the situation and doesn't have a great relationship with his family, and Chaz especially seems to hate him. Ben Stiller's character.